Medieval combat, from 1v1 duels, 10v10 melees, horse-mounted combat, all the way up to 150 versus 150 all-out wars. These people aren't playing around.
And I took a two-handed axe to the head and drove it into my brain about a centimeter.
This is a real sport, and it's absolutely insane. And this seemingly small sport has grown to hold international championships, which are hosted in these huge historical castles. And when investigating of how all this happened, I was introduced to the insane sport of Bohurt. Well, the big question is, how did all this begin? You see, during the medieval times, tournament fights were very popular. They were used to practice strategy, up a knight's skill, and test out new weapons. And they were overall very entertaining. But there was a problem. Knights kept dying, which isn't helpful if you're trying to win wars or, just build a powerful army. So after many dead knights, they decided to blunt the weapons, so people don't die as much. From then, Bohurt will become a massive sport, where the best knight will travel from tournament to tournament fighting. And if a knight was very good, they can make a large fortune. And very likely a king will see how good you are, giving you a secure future. But there was a problem. There were large disagreements on the rules of Bohurt, and the sport became expensive and people were still dying. So eventually, at the year 1342, the era of Bohurt will come to an end. Well, that'll be until the 90s. You see, during the 90s, people started to get together and make reenactment events. And over time, these events started to gain a lot of popularity around the world. But you see, people developed a hunger for legit medieval combat. So historical medieval combat was born, with hundreds of people fighting around the world in different leagues, using real armor and real weapons. And in 2005, the first tournament was held. At first, stuff was quite simple. So it will take into 2009 for the very first Battle of the Nations. Battle of the Nations is an international championship. And for the first event, they went all out, hiring a huge castle. At this first event, 4 nations took part, being Ukraine, Belarus, Poland, and Russia. This first event was hosted by 100 fighters, and when the intense battle was over, one nation will emerge victorious. This event wasn't a reenactment. They were not using foam weapons. This was a full combat sport. They were using real weapons, real armor, using a full rule set that all the nations were competing under, and they were beating each other up. People will really get hurt, like being stretchered out of the arena wasn't uncommon. And as word spread of this event, more and more nations started to come to these events, including many nations out of Europe. And since a lot of these events are held in historic sites, there is a heavy emphasis on historical accuracy. So you could basically use whatever armor or weapon you want, providing you could whip out some paperwork, that proves that this weapon was used in that era. By 2013, Battle of the Nations has grown from only 4 teams to over 22 teams with 400 fighters in total. But you see, in 2015, everything will change, with the introduction of what's known as pro fights. Pro fights are also commonly referred to as medieval MMA, allowing any move, from punches and kicks to elbowing and takedowns. It's basically unrestrained combat. You could do whatever you want. These fights were extremely impressive. Like, there's no way you could watch one of these fights and not be entertained. And on top of that, you could just imagine what these fighters are going through. It's the middle of the day, you're boiling hot, you're wearing 30 kilos of armor, once having a tiny inch of visibility. And that's once your helmet is making it hard to breathe. So you're basically suffocating once you're getting hit around in the head with axes and swords. And that's not all, getting hit by these weapons really hurt. And that's not even including the sound that your helmet makes when it gets hit full force with a metal axe. People do get hurt, they break bones, get concussions, you get bloodied up. But of course there are rules and regulations to make sure that this sport is at least relatively safe. The swords do need to be blunted. As well, the armor is made of tempered steel, which means the armor won't cave in and get you stuck. And on top of all that, the refs do a really good job in keeping it safe. But yet again, it does attract a certain type of people. They are ready to get hit with steel weapons. And if you're thinking of all the people that go to these events, all of them need to buy weapons and armor. It costs a lot of money. So one of the things that holds the sport back is just how expensive it is. And because of that, the sport is having a harder time growing. So they've been adding games like Capture the Flag and stuff like that to attract more viewers. And in addition to that, more medieval sports have gained popularity, like horse-mounted combat or LARPing. So in the end, I think that all in all, this sport has great potential. Watching a bunch of people put on medieval armor, battle and put on big events with all of the people that come from around the world to watch, you know, it's really great. And I actually really want to go and watch one of these events and maybe put on some medieval armor and battle myself.